Lean Inception, in high level, you need to align a group of people to be successful. It's about alignment. What is the vision? And then we try to align what is the MVP, the minimum viable product. What's that very first step? When you think about a minimum viable product, you need to think about it from three angles: the business angle, the users, and then the engineers, getting those three perspectives together so they align and decide, okay, what is that very first step?
Hey everyone, my name is Henry Suryawirawan, and you're listening to the Tech Lead Journal, the show where I'll be bringing you the greatest technical leaders, practitioners, and thought leaders in the industry to discuss about their journey, ideas, and practices that we all can learn and apply to build a highly performing technical team and to make an impact in your personal work. So let's dive into our journal. Hi everyone, another week goes by and I'm back here again with a new episode of the Tech Lead Journal podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending your time with me today listening to this episode. If you're new to the podcast, know that Tech Lead Journal is available for you to subscribe on major podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and many others. Also check out and follow Tech Lead Journal's social media channels on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find amazing quotes and words of wisdom from every podcast episode, and I share them on those channels to give us some inspiration for us to get better each day. And if you're thinking about making some contribution to the show and support the creation of this podcast, please consider joining as a patron by visiting techleadjournal.dev/patron. I highly appreciate any kind of support, and your contribution would help me towards sustainably producing this show every week. For today's episode, I am happy to share my conversation with Paulo Caroli. Paulo is a principal consultant at Thoughtworks, co-founder of Agile Brazil, and the author of the bestseller Lean Inception and the recent FunRetrospectives. I learned about Lean Inception when I used to work at Thoughtworks, and during my time there, I found that Lean Inception is one of the key techniques that Thoughtworks uses in many client engagements to bring everyone together, come up with a successful product vision, and create alignment between multiple stakeholders involved. And hence, most of the projects that started with an inception will most likely result in a successful project delivery. In this episode, Paulo shared with me the history of Thoughtworks Inception, how it evolved into the current Lean Inception, and its connection with the Lean Startup movement. He also explained the similarities and differences between Lean Inception and the other well-known design sprint, including the interesting story on how both techniques were developed almost at the same time and why they ended up quite similar but different in a few strategic ways. Paulo also shared an example how to come up with a good product vision, the concept of MVP canvas, and the importance of shifting our mindset, project mindset, to product mindset. In the second half of our conversation, Paulo then shared his latest contribution, FunRetrospectives, which brings together many different techniques to conduct effective retrospectives. He explained the reasoning behind the fun techniques, shared some of those fun activities that we all can try in our next retrospectives, including the interesting token of appreciation technique. He also emphasized the importance of psychological safety and facilitation skills in a good retrospective. And if you're interested to find out more examples of fun retrospectives that you can try, you can check them out on his website at FunRetrospectives.com. I hope you will enjoy this episode, and if you like it, consider helping the show by leaving it a rating, review, or comment on your podcast app or social media channels. Those reviews and comments are one of the best ways to help me get this podcast to reach more listeners, and hopefully they can also benefit from the contents in this podcast. Let's get this episode started right after our short sponsor message. Are you looking for a new cool swag? Tech Lead Journal now offers you some swags that you can purchase online. These swags are printed on demand based on your preference and will be delivered safely to you all over the world where shipping is available. Check out all the cool swags available by visiting techleadjournal.dev/shop. And don't forget to brag yourself once you receive any of those swags. Hey everyone, welcome back to a new episode of the Tech Lead Journal. Today I have a special guest. His name is Paulo Caroli. He's a colleague of mine last time in Thoughtworks. So he wrote a book called Lean Inception. For those of you who are not aware of it, is actually one of the techniques that Thoughtworks use, still doing, I guess. For all customers, before they start a project, they will conduct a Lean Inception and understand about the products, come up with an agreement about how to build the products, how to approach the products, until you come up with an agreement of what kind of MVP that you want to build. It is a very good technique. So I'd love to have a talk today with Paulo to understand further about Lean Inception and also to share with all of you. So Paulo, welcome to the show. Thanks for agreeing for this.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Paulo, maybe to introduce yourself in the beginning, maybe telling about your career journey, your highlights and turning points.
Sure. So I'm Paulo Caroli. I am Brazilian. I was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro. Then I went to software engineering school. I did a master in Brazil. And then I went to Silicon Valley. It was back on the days on the late 90s. I was an object-oriented developer. I used to go to the UPSLA conference, a big conference in the US, and I fell in love with Silicon Valley. And one of the trips to the conference, I went to Silicon Valley. I'm like, oh, I want to live here. So I moved to Silicon Valley. I spent 8 years there. I worked on quite a few startups. When I got in US, which was in 2000, because of object-oriented, I used to follow Kent Beck, which wrote the book Extreme Program Explaining. And then I met him in 2000. And then I started following all those things that later were called Agile. This was one of the reasons that I went to work for Thoughtworks, because a lot of those folks, quite a few of those went to work for Thoughtworks. So I did the same. When I joined Thoughtworks, I always had that lean startup thing on me. Like I really like that side, but I also like the Agile development side. And Thoughtworks usually work for big clients. Then I started traveling a lot, several organizations. I moved to Asia, Europe, back to Brazil. From a developer, I started being a facilitator. One thing I realized, I was pretty good on getting people together to align about something. Usually the beginning of the project was a very important part, especially for a developer. You work for 6 months, 1 year, and then you don't see your product like being successful. It was really bad. And then I started getting involved on the beginning phase, which is called the inception. Damn, well, what can we do to better align so we have a great success with our product, our team? And then from 2011 forward, I started concentrate those inceptions to be more lean. Lean the aspect like being shorter and more effective. Imagine that, with Agile, we try to be more effective now. In 2011, or like 10 years after the Agile Manifesto, and we could be even better. Before the beginning of the project was the inception, but was like, oh, let's understand all the user stories. And then in 2011, I realized, thanks God, I used to live in Silicon Valley, and I was following the movements from there. We gave an name to Lean Startup, and we should start with the MVP. That's why the Lean Inception. It's Lean because of Lean Startup. It was a big shift on my career, and I think on Thoughtworks and the projects that I was working nearby. That's why Lean Inception started spreading the word around the globe. In Brazil, it's a big thing because I was living there, I think from 2011 to 2019, which was really good. And because I had 3 kids in Brazil during those years, I was not traveling abroad a lot. So I was doing a lot of Lean Inceptions for Brazilian companies. So in Brazil, like everybody's doing Inception nowadays. 2019, I moved to Europe. And now with the remote world, I start doing more Lean Inceptions all over the globe remotely. Now I think that the word is spreading faster.
So maybe if you can share what is Lean Inception in high-level summary for people who are not aware of it.
Sure. Lean Inception, in high level, you need to align a group of people to be successful. That's it. It's about alignment. Usually you go to a company, corporation, or a product. It doesn't matter. There is a vision. Hey, that's amazing. That's a vision. We're all going to be rich. We're going to be successful. Yeah, and then what? And then you need to align. It's this strategy. Like, what's the path? Traditionally, we would go with the strategy and it's like a long train wreck. Oh, we need to do this and this and that and that. We realize the world's not like that. So on the Lean Inception, align that group of people. Okay, what is the vision? And then we try to align what is the MVP, the minimum viable product. So we're okay with the vision. It's important to have the vision, but what's that very first step? It's very hard to align about that very first step. Because when you think about a minimum viable product, you need to think about it from 3 angles. The business angle, which is super important, the business behind it. It doesn't matter if you're a small company or a big company, it's a business. The users, because you always build something for someone to use and like you want the users to love it. And then the engineers, because you need to build it, right? When you put those 3 people together to figure out what is that minimum, it's not that easy because each one has different perspective and they want different things. So Lean Inception about it, getting those 3 perspectives together so they align and decide, okay, what is that very first step?
And you mentioned it's also an evolution since it was created before, right? Like you mentioned the portion of the lean, so it becomes Lean Inception. So how do you actually combine this lean startup movement with this inception? And how does this relate to design thinking? To me, it sounds a little bit similar.
Yeah, no, it definitely has a lot of influence from design thinking, right? You have to put this in perspective. I was in US from 2000 to 2008. So I was there in the beginning of the Agile movement. So I'm highly influenced by the Agile movement, but I was a developer. So I had the pain of, oh, this project's not successful because like, hey, I built something and no one's using it. This is from 2000 to 2008. Before that, on the 90s, I was an object-oriented person. So I like object-oriented analysis, design, implementation, all that thing that used to have like years ago. But from that, there was something interesting because we used to have inception phase. In fact, Rational created UML. Another thing they created was the Rational Unified Process, which was agile. Like the industry was moving towards we had to be more agile. And Loop was one of those first methodologies that showed up. Today, you look at it like, oh, it was so slow, but at the time it's fast. And then they named that beginning of the understanding of what we need to do on a project as inception. So when I went to US and we start with the agile movement, now we start doing more like of agile inceptions, where we understand everything we need to do for that project. We used to use the word project. You would map it to user stories. For example, like another colleague of ours, Jeff Patton, he wrote the book User Story Mapping. That's from that period where we try to understand everything, the users, their journey, the business needs, and we map everything to user stories, and we do this huge release planning with all the sprints. Oh, sprint 1, 2, 3. You even estimate everything, and you have story points, and you have burn up for, oh, we're going to deliver 300 story points, and you have that release plan for 1 year. And nowadays, looking back, I'm like, wow, I was crazy to do that. Why I'm saying this? Because like in 2011, they startup movement in Silicon Valley. They're like, hey, I don't care about doing agile or not. We cannot build a product for 1 year to see if it makes sense to the user. Let's do something, the minimum thing we can do to validate if you're going in a good direction. And that's the MVP. So the Lean Inception is a shift from let me understand the overall project to, yeah, let's talk about the vision and then figure out how do we get started. So the focus is not more on release planning of all the user stories. The focus is like, okay, how do we start? When you talk about MVP, now the focus not that much on where are all the user stories behind it. It's more like, where are you validating? What hypothesis are you validating? Let's talk about the business, the user experience, and then the engineer side. What is the minimum we can do to validate you're going in a good direction? Of course, after the inception, if you're a software delivery team, you break it into user story. But now it became much easier because it's much smaller and everybody's aligned. So that's the shift on Lean Inception. It's like bringing that Lean startup thinking as a center outcome, like a center result of that alignment. And of course, as I'm doing Inception in 2011, design thinking as a movement is something that was getting more and more popular as well. I myself am a really good facilitator. Besides being a software engineer that like process and improvement, I'm a really good facilitator. So I brought all of my facilitation skills on how to align a group of people from different perspectives. You need a lot of skills like handling post-its, the cluster, and do a fishbowl, all this kind of stuff. The book has two sides. One's like, hey, let's talk about MVP. It's very important. We should focus on it. The sequence of activities, they work really well. So if you want to figure out, okay, how to align a group of people and do the MVP, you can do like I did. It took me like 4 or 5 years to figure out a good sequence of activities that went well. And I was running Inception like almost every week. Or you follow that recipe that you're going to figure out, wow, if I follow this, we achieve great results at the end. So that's the Lean Inception, the mix of the activities and the sequence and why MVP with some tips and notes on how do you facilitate it.
How about the design thinking? Because design thinking, I mean, we also have this sprint design, right? Sounds like it's also a similar time frame where you envision what you want to build and you have an MVP at the end of it. So what's the difference here?
Design sprint and Lean Inception, right? I find it fascinating. Jake Knapp, he was also in Silicon Valley, right? I think he's a little younger than me. I was more of a developer. He was more of a designer. You have a difference there. But he was living in Silicon Valley. We went through similar companies. He was feeling the same pain that I was feeling. It's like, damn it, I need to align these people to figure out what they're going to do. Even as a coincidence, I was a consultant at Google for 1 year, same time that he was there as well. We almost worked on the same thing. It was very interesting. I even remember him from there. Of course, like both of us were not famous, but like I remember, oh, there's this design dude, which I like his style. Like I could see he's a good facilitator. Google is huge, so we went on different teams. What happened is, in common, both of us use design thinking. Post-its and, okay, how to align people. The double diamond, open the options, and then you close some options. Both of us have that same style. Both of us came to the conclusion that, like, you know what? It is a week. It is a 5-day thing. I had time. Sometimes I would make it more. Sometimes I would make it shorter. If it is shorter, you don't have time to have a brainstorming. It's more like if you try to do something in design sprint or inception in one day, probably someone telling you that's what I want to go figure out. If you have in a week, you can open the options and then make a decision, close it at the end. The thing is, like, from the time I was working on Google, I went to India and I was running Inception for UK, and then I went to Brazil. So I was not following what he was doing, and he was not following what I was doing, especially that I was writing a lot in Portuguese. And we came to a lot of similarities based on practical experience. But the place where we do diverge, where we do difference, and of course this has to do with our backgrounds, he has that week about the design team. So he is more focused on the design. So get that people that will figure out the design. They'll have some options for the design. They'll put in front of users. He's going to get like 5 users, for example. They will test, and then they'll decide, okay, we have one winning prototype, but it's based on a design, on an interface. At the end result, it's a prototype. It comes from the design world. I come from the startup. I come from Agile, where we used to have the user story that tells you exactly what's the value it's going to bring, how I'm going to implement, and sometimes even has the interface. I don't want that as an MVP. As an MVP, I want to be very clear, what do I want to validate? But I don't want to specify the how. So it's a big difference to know if at the end of the week you have a prototype, and usually the prototype for something bigger, that's design sprint. On the Lean Inception, you align a group of people about the vision, and you have a plan for the MVP, but you do not have a prototype. Use a prototype for something bigger, MVP is a plan for something small, that first step. That's a major difference. It's a strategic difference. If you think you know where you're going to know the big picture, if you're already aligned about what you want, design sprint. If you want to align about what do you want, how do you start, Lean Inception. Or you combine both and then it's amazing.
So then my next question will be, how often do you run this Lean Inception? Is it like if you have a new product only, or is it like even if you have a product, you can continuously run these inceptions from time to time, maybe quarterly or something like that? So what's the frequency to run this kind of inception?
First, I want to bring another person which I really admire his work, Marty Kagan. Marty Kagan writes a lot and talks a lot about product teams, that you should have a product team and everybody's together. So in the perfect world, if you have a very strong product team, everybody's together the whole time, they're doing continuous discovery, they are aligned, it is the same team, you probably don't need a Lean Inception because the teams aligned, they are doing discovery and they are also developing the product. They know what they need to do, just do it continuously. But it's very rare to find those people. And sometimes it's difficult in the company to structure the organization with product teams. Majority of organizations I go through, even though I love those theories about product teams, that's what we should aspire for. But sometimes we're not there. And then we need somehow to get some people together to align, okay, what we're going to do. What is the vision? Sometimes you do have some discovery going on. So some people that did discovery get together with some business people that maybe they're not part of the product team, they're not together the whole time, and then the engineers, unfortunately, they are not sitting together with the product team the whole time. And then you need the Lean Inception. So when there is a aha moment, a new feature coming, or an important thing that we need to align, that's perfect for Lean Inception. If the group get aligned and it is the same group, probably you don't need another Lean Inception because you're already aligned. You align about the vision and the MVP. Now it's about continuously working, pivoting, change a little bit. Like it's normal work. It's not a Lean Inception anymore. If the pivot, it's a huge change of direction, then you need to align again. Then you do a Lean Inception. It's not like continuous delivery or continuous discovery. It is, okay, we need to align, get together, align.
So if I understand correctly, is that every time you have probably a potential difference in terms of vision and alignment, you would conduct this Lean Inception in order to bring everybody towards the same vision and towards the same alignment in order to build the same kind of understanding of MVP or in terms of product. Is that a correct understanding?
Perfect words. Whenever you need to either align or realign people about vision and the MVP, that's a call for a Lean Inception.
And it's also critical to have these 3 types of people, from business, from the developers, and also from users.
I would say it's critical to have those 3 perspectives. Because sometimes you go to a startup and you do not have a lot of people because they're a startup. Even though you don't have the 3 kinds of people, you want to invite the 3 perspectives in the room. So I did run Inception for a very smart entrepreneur. The second day where you need to think about the personas and the journeys, he dressed different. He brought costumes as if he were the persona. I felt that amazing because he was inviting the perspective of the users. Of course, there's more into startup, right? Big companies is different because in big companies, you want to invite the people that represent those three perspectives. And you do have sometimes more than one people. And then the challenge is like, okay, there are a lot of people here. How do I align? In the startup, when you invite the perspective, even though you do not have people or don't have all the engineers in, but you want to invite that perspective into the room.
So maybe if you can walk through in terms of high level, what is typical agenda of a Lean Inception?
Sure. First, I like to think about it from outside in. First, what is the goal of the week? What is the vision and what is the MVP? So if that's the goal of the week, before that week, you need to understand why I'm bringing the group together to talk about the vision. So probably there was now it varies a lot. Big company that use a lot of project and not old style, but more traditional project oriented, finance oriented, probably has a portfolio of projects and one of them show, hey, this is a really good project. And I'm like, okay, you get an approval. And then after you get an approval, maybe you need an inception. If you're a company doing like discovery, there are a lot of discovery going on and looks like by comparing those 5 different options, this one's a winner. Let's do an inception on that one. I showed you 2 different sides. Or customer research, you have a lot of customer research and data and user research. Oh, cool. Looks like we have something here. Call for a Lean Inception as well. There is something that happened before a Lean Inception or even a design sprint. Let's do a design sprint and prototype a big thing. Okay, now how do we start? You even test a few users, but like few users now, you need to think about MVP and really validate it. So put in the hands of the user, only invite them to test a prototype, which is amazing, but let's now figure out what is the MVP that we're going to put in their hands. So call for an inception again. So I talked to you about what happens before the goal of the week. Because there is that goal of the week needs to start with a kickoff. What's the kickoff? You tell the story what happened before. Hey, we're here like 10, 15 people together because this is the top priority project for our company. Here's the data from UX research. Here's the data from the business request. Like whatever information you have, that's shared on the kickoff. And then the main sponsor, whoever that person is, probably make a beautiful speech. Hey, we're here. It's going to be amazing. The best team ever, the best enterprise, the best product, whatever. So kickoff, speech from the main sponsor, information of why we're here, why the kickoff of this Lean Inception for this initiative. And 3, usually it's myself or whoever's the facilitator, to bring the importance of, hey, do you know what's Lean Startup? Do you know what's MVP? We'll talk about the big vision, but at the end of the week, we're going to have the MVP. To get there, we're going to follow this agenda. So you need to bring that message on the agenda. It's a very important message that you need to bring on the kickoff. Why is that? Because you want to bring that like, hey, whoever stay in the room, I want perspectives from the business, from the users, and from the engineers together. It's not like the old world where someone, okay, here is the business requirement document, here's the data from the users, here are the engineers, they meet on separate meetings, and then throw all those documents. Let's hire a consultancy, figure out and tell me what I should do. No. We don't work like this anymore. Yeah, let's talk about business, everybody's listening. Let's talk about the user, everybody's listening. Let's talk about the engineers, everybody's listening. And then together, we're going to figure out what's the MVP. It's not an external thing that Paulo Caroli, he's really smart. Throw all the information in, and at the end, he'll bring the plan for the MVP. No, not at all. In fact, there is no such a thing as a perfect plan for MVP. The perfect thing is like people align about that plan, and they'll make the plan a success. They'll make the plan a success not because they'll follow the plan. It's because they're aligned. They know what they want, and they will pivot together, especially working with MVP. We pivot a lot. So it's not about the plan, it's about being aligned. So that strong message is on the kickoff. Now that you have this strong message, also on the kickoff, you tell, okay, Friday, 3 p.m., we're going to have a showcase, a review of the week. Well, it's going to be nowadays in Miro or whatever to use. Last year, it's going to be on the walls here, everything we did, but we're going to show you the final outcome, which is what is the vision, what is the plan for them. So I invite you, stakeholder, that would love to be here, but I do know you don't have time to be here because you have other things going on. I invite you to come back here Friday at 3 p.m. and we'll have a conversation about it. A conversation, it's not a presentation, because I want to hear your input as well to see if whatever plan we come up with, it's a good plan. So that's the beginning and the end of the week. Now I'm going to go day by day. Day 1, it's more about understanding more about the business context. We are aligned, validate the business context. We use that product vision statement from Jeffrey Moore. What is this product, what it's not? And if possible, bring a product perspective, right? We need to make that shift from projects to product. So that's why I use the product vision to know whatever you're building, think it as a box. It is a box, a product, you're delivering something. What is the name that goes in that box? Fill up the product template statement, everybody together. It's different than the statement that comes from the product manager or the product owner or the business owner. No, we are going to fill it together because we're together here and we all understood what we want out of this. So first day, a lot of things about everybody's together. It's a little bit more from the business perspective, right? Day two, it's a little bit more from the user perspective. Let's share the information we have about the personas. If you had user research, these people are in the room together and together we will share this information. It's not a presentation. Together we are drawing who do we believe are the personas that we think will be impacted by this thing we're building, or who are the personas we should talk about before making decisions. And then the journeys, what are the user journeys that those personas go to solve their problems today? That's it. It's like day one, perspective from the business, day two, perspective from the personas. Day three, if it is a product that you're building, it's a feature brainstorm. Okay, now that we look at the business goals, the persona needs, which features should we build to fulfill those business goals and to help achieve those personas needs? If you look at the journeys, it might be easier to find the feature ideas, but you might look at the persona needs, at the business goals, and that's it. It's a feature brainstorming. You have some boundaries around it. You're not starting with a feature brainstorming. It's very dangerous. Sometimes you get the engineers and they want to start from the feature brainstorming from the technical perspective. No, like when you put the feature brainstorm, it's hard for me to say because I'm an engineer myself. But when you do the feature brainstorm on day three, there are more boundaries around it. So even if you come with an amazing technical idea, like it has an amazing technical idea to solve some of the problem either from the business or the users. It's important to have those boundaries. Otherwise, I'm going to include myself on that as engineers. Many times you think about the solutions before thinking about the problems. So when it is on day three, it makes you think more about the problem than the solution. And then day three also start making a review for each of those features. And that's the thing, that's the design thinking again. You're opening the office, right? You're doing a feature brainstorm, you're opening. We're not thinking about MVP yet. So it's a brainstorm. And then day three and day four, you start making a review of all those features. We understand they're isolated. It's like small Lego bricks. We know the vision, we don't know what's the MVP, but you talk about possible pieces of those bricks, those features. And you review each one of them individually from the perspective of the business, the users, and the technology. And then what you do on day 5 in the morning is, okay, now that we talk about all of them individual, look back at those user journeys and answer the question, how to improve their lives with our features? And once we start answering this question, you have a sequencer. In which order should we work on those features to fulfill those needs? But wait a second, we are on a Lean Inception. Now is the time of the strategy, right? We know all this information. How do we think big but start small and validate? And then this goes on the sequencer. And usually on the sequencer, people go, oh, I think here's the MVP. But people need to talk about what is the next increment. What do we think will come after that? It's also part of the strategy. Even though we'll focus on the MVP the following week, the business people especially, we need a strategy that's not only the first step. Your first step is also influenced by what you think will happen after. And then from that, you go to the MVP canvas, which goes in great detail about that very first step. And that's the final day, day 5, and showcase.
So if I can summarize probably from the beginning, you have the kickoff from the project sponsor, setting the right mindset, the right goal for everybody within this Inception workshop. And then on day 1, you talk about the business, you set up the vision, what the product is all about, and set a vision that everybody agrees. Day 2 is about user perspective, understand personas, the user journeys involved. Day 3 is about feature brainstorming, what this product would have in terms of capabilities and features. And the crucial thing is about setting the boundaries, not to come up with the features without vision, but coming up from vision into the features. And then day 4, you do some kind of review from the tech, from the UX, from the business perspective. And then on day 5, you agree what kind of MVP that you want to build, including the sequence of the features that you want to build. And then the last deliverable will be the MVP canvas.
Exactly. Well, one important thing about day 3, it's if your product it's a little more technical, day 3 might get a little more technical as well. It's okay. When you do the feature brainstorming, as an engineer, I know that sometimes you need to get into some technical details. It's okay. Don't get into too much detail because you don't know yet what's the MVP. Get in the first level just for us to understand those blocks, those features.
Makes sense. In terms of vision, you mentioned there's a template that you came up with. So maybe if you can share, because to me, vision sounds a little bit vague, right? We can talk about so many things, but what is a good template?
For the vision, the first thing I realize is vision is vague. I'm not talking about the organizational vision. I think this is very important. I'm talking more about a product vision. And I like the word product. It's not a project, it's a product. Even if you're within a project scope, you need to figure out, I'm building something. What is this? Sometimes people are not very sure, oh, we're building a microservice. No, okay, what are you building? Imagine it is in a box. What is that box? Who are you building it for? What needs do these people have? What is different from what you have today? What is the main thing that thing you're building is bringing to these people? So Jeffrey Moore is amazing, right? I really like his work. On his book, Crossing the Cows, he was really good on the early adopters. On that graph that he makes, like, oh, you have the early adopters, and then you need to go to the early majority. It's hard. That's where the Lean Inception kind of fits. We kind of already agreed that, oh, we think we have a solution, we have that on the kickoff. Also, tell me, what is the product? So he has a product vision template. So the template I use is from Jeffrey Moore, which is amazing. I read it from his book from 1991. The template goes like this, 4. That's what I find it's amazing. I don't even think it's grammatically correct in English. You start the sentence, for who is this thing that you come up with? Who? What are the needs that these people have? For who? What is the name of the thing you're building? Give it a name. And then like a product needs a name, or like that box needs a name. What is that box? It's a mobile app. It's a collection of APIs. It's a data mesh. What is it? Because sometimes we're confused. It's a product. It's a project. It's a team. What is it? What are the main characteristics of that thing? How are those people today without that box you're putting in front of them? Our product, what is the main differentiator? I find that template amazing because it forces you to think about all those perspectives to start with. You start from there. So I'm not going from the organization vision perspective. I'm not going for all the team's alignment on that box. Because later on, at the end of the week, I want even in a smaller box. It's not even a box. I want the MVP. But I need to start from somewhere. But I'm not going to start from somewhere huge. Oh, what's the organizational vision? Oh, Tesla vision is to make this a better world through the environmental. Yes, I'm talking about the product vision. Put this in perspective, the shift from project to product as a product. That's why I like Marty Kagan, because you talk about product team. Just like data as a product. Like that's the thing. Like we need to think about those solutions that we're building as a product. And the Lean Inception start with what is the product vision.
So maybe if you can give an example, because just now when you describe it, it's a little bit like in pieces, right? So maybe if you can take one product example and come up with the hypothetical vision for us to understand better, if that's okay.
I cannot give you from the clients because a great majority of the inception are on the clients, right? I would disclose their product visions. I'll give you from the book. For people that like playing soccer, who need to find other colleagues to play after work hours, the Find Your Soccer Colleagues app is a mobile app that helps connect people to play soccer after work hours or at lunchtime. Unlike, getting fat because you did not find the people, or like sending messages on generic WhatsApp group and Facebook groups, our app will connect you to people nearby that have the same problem and need to play that game at the end of the day. That's a product vision. In fact, it did happen in one of the Inception, but it was for a community in Brazil long ago. They created a mobile app for that. And of course, it's only the vision, right? We haven't talked about MVP and anything, but it gets us started. We get to start as the business perspective, the users, and the technical perspective. And if you go through all the activities in the week, at the end of the week, you have for the MVP.
Thanks for giving the illustration. So the other thing that I find very interesting from Lean Inception is the concept of this MVP canvas. Maybe you can share a bit, what is MVP canvas?
I started running Inception in 2011. In Thoughtworks in Brazil, we have Thoughtworks Porto Alegre, where I was working at. We had 200 people. It's a city on the south. We had Thoughtworks São Paulo and Thoughtworks Recife, 2 other cities. And I was invited to run all the Inceptions, a great majority of them. The teams that I would run the Inceptions, Porto Alegre in the south, majority of projects from São Paulo. We would travel to São Paulo, run an Inception, and those teams would come back to Porto Alegre, where I was living and working. They would go better to the teams that were in Recife, even though I was running the same Inceptions. And I was like, why is this happening? And then I realized that the weeks after the Inception, I would walk by the table of the team and say like, hey, how's that MVP doing? How are you validating the MVP? Because on the Inception, we would talk about the building blocks of the MVP. I'm like, okay, now you're getting close, like how you're releasing it. Are you opening it to only a specific group of people? Or are you opening it to the whole client's database? which part of the journeys are you validating with the MVP? Because on the Inception talk about a lot of journeys, but the MVP is very focused, right? And I would go like, what is the expected result for the MVP, not for the product? Okay, that MVP that you're releasing now, what do you want? Oh, I want everybody to play soccer. No, like that one. What do you want to measure on that MVP? That MVP has very few features. What are the metrics that you're collecting to verify it? So I realized that I was making questions that I should have left them written down during the Inception. Even though I would make all those questions on the Inception, they would just vanish after that. Because the teams would go the next week and build user stories and have a backlog of work, and that's it. And then you go in delivery mode and you would lose a little bit of that strategy. So I decided to bring this as a canvas on the Inception. And then all the teams would canvas on the Inception. So when they go to their table and you sit together and have to know the sequencer and the backlog of work next to it, they would have the MVP canvas, so they know it's that bridge of, okay, why we're building this and how we're going to solve the results, or how we're going to get the information. So the MVP canvas has 7 blocks. One, what is the MVP proposal? Which is very narrow focus on the MVP, right? The proposal of this MVP is to validate if people from that neighborhood will download that. Something really small. Segmented personas. Okay, for all the personas, we're talking only about amateur soccer players from a neighborhood. We're not talking about the more professional, the people that own soccer fields that want to make some money renting them, maybe the coaches. No, this one's only for amateur soccer players, not all over Brazil, only that one neighborhood where I have one soccer field that I could rent. The user journeys. What are the user journeys that are impact on this MVP? Well, this MVP, it's only finding other people to play with you. We cannot share the view. You cannot do this and that and that. We cannot create a tournament. It's only that one. It's very specific. We're talking about MVP. Okay, what are the features or work items that we need to get solved on this MVP? Oh, we need to make the Google form work, but we want to connect with WhatsApp. We want to be calling people. So, okay, we need at least integration with Google form and WhatsApp. You detail the work you need to do. What's the expected result? Well, damn it. Okay, how are we going to make this work? Oh, we should hire AdWords on Google for that neighborhood. Okay, cool. So let's hire like $200 on AdWords. So $200 with this, we can buy 100,000 click-through rates. We expect that at least 10% of those will click. And from those, at least this number downloads the app and schedule a match. Cool. Wait a second, but we should have the NPS. If they play the match, we should contact them. How are we going to contact them? Oh, we figure out it's a message. No, we can call them. So a few people, okay, we expect the NPS to be at least this number. So you know the metrics. And once you know all of these, what is the cost and schedule? Oh, cost and schedule, well, $200 for the Google ads. Well, we need the team. No, we don't need the team. We can do this ourselves. So we need 3 weeks. We can get this done. And after it's done, we need at least 1 month collecting data to decide the next steps. That's called cost and schedule. That's it. That's your MVP canvas. It's very narrow focus for the MVP.
Yeah, if I can probably try to summarize. So there are 7 different key things in the MVP canvas. The first is, what is the MVP all about? Maybe the vision of that particular MVP. It's not the whole product, definitely. And then who are the personas involved and what kind of user journeys that you will build as part of that MVP. The features that you are committed to build for this MVP. And then what is the expected results, or what are the expected results that you want to achieve with this MVP? And then you'll have to find out some metrics in order to validate those results. And then the last point is about cost and schedule, like how much cost you need to build and how long the time required to build the product. So, Paulo, I know that you also wrote another book called FunRetrospectives, right? So the word fun here is very interesting because many people know about retrospectives, but why specifically FunRetrospectives?
Yeah, in fact, like I said, I have 2 loves, like it's Lean Inception, FunRetrospectives. It's 2 of my things, and both of them put people at the center, right? It has a lot of facilitation, but like putting people at the center of making decisions or improving the way they work. Retrospects, influenced by Scrum, I think was really smart when they said, hey, you should always have a retrospective in your sprints. You should have 1 retrospective per week, because some teams don't use Scrum, but you should have a retrospective per week. Is that continuous improvement moment where you get together with your team and say, hey, let's listen to each other and see how can we be more effective as a group. It's a moment to listen to each other, to look for process improvements, but a lot of that should go into people improvements. It's almost like if you go to therapy every week, is that 1 hour with your therapist, but a group thing. For that reason, many times you get the group together, we work on software delivery. The glass is always half full. It's never oh, woohoo, the glass is filled. No, it's always half full. And for some reason, you get people together. My realization is that we have a tendency to focus on the negative thing. We have a tendency to always say, oh, look, the glass is half full. We never celebrate the glass is, we always say the glass is half empty, not half full. So I put the word there for two reasons. One is, hey, you should celebrate the achievements. And teams, when they're happier, they deliver more. So if you celebrate that the glass is half full, is much better than if you keep on saying, what do you do to fill up the other half? So the fun there, one, is like fun to remember to celebrate the achievements and to make it a light environment. Because we do need to talk about problems as well. It is important. But in order to be effective and bring difficult conversations, it needs to be a friendly environment. So before getting to, hey, Henry, how are you doing? I need to talk about a problem. Like, hello, this is the context. Let's have an energize. Let's laugh. Let's relax. Let's talk about the prime directive. And then maybe, well, not maybe, we're going to bring the problem, but like now the environment is more light-hearted. So that is why the fun showed up there. And also our colleague, Patrick Kua, we worked together for a few years. And he also is really good at retrospective. He also has a book on retrospective. And when I was selecting the name of the book and the website, and I'm like, hey, Pat, I need a name. What should I call it? And then he told Paulo, you always make the retrospectives more fun. Even though we're talking about serious stuff, like whenever you're facilitating it, you make it fun, you make it light. I'm like, oh, fun retrospectives. Thank you. And then it became fun retrospectives.
Thanks for sharing the story. So you mentioned a couple of things very interesting. The first thing is about celebration, right? So what are some of the probably examples of activities that you can do to come up with this celebration within the team?
One's very simple. Like you go to retrospective, we usually like split the board into 2 or 3 areas or 4. When you split the board into areas, name one of the areas, thank you. And then you say, hey, on here, please write down thank you notes to your colleagues. Write down why do you want to thank them for. Usually retrospect is about a period, like thank you. Or name one of the areas accomplishment. Let's write down the accomplishments we did during this period. That's super simple. Like I'm not even tell you exactly what retrospective activity it is, but whatever retrospective style or activity you select, think about have one area for thank you, for acknowledgement, for accomplishment. Unless you ask for it, people won't write. I think it's human nature. We'll talk about the problems. If you're going to talk about the problems, have one area and say thank you. Another one activity, super simple. This was more fun presential. Bring a box of chocolate and then you named it a token of appreciation. Then introduce it as a facilitator. Hey, on part of the retrospective, we're going to appreciate each other. So I have a chocolate box here. Let's please form a circle. I'm going to start. I want to appreciate Henry for that day on the sprint planning. He was really helpful to me when he brought the slides and showed on all the things we did last week. So Henry, thank you. And then I walked to Henry with a box of chocolate. Henry, get one chocolate. And now you appreciate someone else and then you give him that person a chocolate and verbally tell why you're doing it. It's amazing, the result. Going face to face, thank each other in front of the group. That boosts the group morale. It's amazing. Simple. It's a box of chocolate. I just feel bad because until now I didn't find remote how to make it. Like you can say thank you, but like that chocolate taste, how do we make it happen remotely?
So how would you do it remotely? Because these days everyone is remote, right?
Yeah, I did that one remote. Like you made a circle in Miro, wherever. It's like you put people's avatar in circle, and then each time like one person would walk with a flower to the other one and verbalize why it's giving the flower. And the little flower would stay there. In person, I prefer because I like chocolate. It is something when you receive a compliment and right after that you have a taste of chocolate in your mouth. That's amazing, you know, because it's like you get the compliment and then your body also gets a compliment, a nice taste. It's a really good feeling. But we need to verbalize at least. I know we are remote. One thing I did, like I did a token of appreciation. I organized to deliver chocolate for everybody on the meeting. So they all received a package. I said, hey, you're going to receive a package. Please don't open before the retrospective. You can only eat when you receive the appreciation. It was cool. It worked out.
Yeah, the one I've experienced before is somebody giving the post-its, just a post-it with maybe a few messages like why you thank the person. But I can understand that giving it with maybe token of appreciation like chocolate or flowers or something tangible, at least it also gives some meaning for you to actually enjoy after that actual message. So definitely, I think for people, maybe you can try these kind of fun activities, giving a token of appreciation, not just like post-its or letters. That will be a good experiment, I guess. Another thing is about light environment, right? I think many people try to make retrospective really lightweight, but many times, of course, we talk about problems, right? How to actually be conscious on making this more lightweight?
That's a really good question, because we will talk about problems, right? We need to talk about problems, and retrospect, it is that meeting for us to talk about problems. So how do you handle it? First, the context. You have to be very clear about the context. If the team is on a sad moment, like the energy is low, do not make a context that invites for problem. Be conscious about the context of the retrospect. The team is super happy, it's achieving, cool. Let's focus on the problems. The team morale is really low, let's have a retrospect to boost morale. So that's part of the context. When you decide what is the context of the retrospect, you need to be aware of the moment of the team. Don't choose a context to dig further into problems if the team morale is really low. So first do a retrospect to boost morale, and then the next one you dig further into problems. So the context is very important. After the context, do run a short energizer. It's a 5-minute activity too. You need to break the ice, especially now remote, because before when you were presential, you leave the table, you leave the desk, and then together you walk to a room. And then as you walk in the room, okay, I'm coming to retrospect. It's similar to when you walk to the psychologist office, and like, okay, I'm physically walking here to a place where I'm going to open my heart, right? Retrospect was the same. We'd walk into the room. Now it's just another meeting. So you need to break the ice. If possible, the energize should be fast. It's not, oh, we're going to have an activity. We stay 1 hour playing here. No, we cannot do this. It needs to be fast, like 5 minutes. And if possible, with a subtle message related to what you want to achieve from it. If you're having problems of self-organizing, an energizer that has a subtle message on self-organizing teams. You have problems with user stories, an energizer that has a subtle message about, hey, we need to communicate, not only rely on written documents. So find energizer for a subtle message that will help you with the context. So you have the context, you have the energizer, the prime directive, where you remind people about, hey, it's not a blank fast. But the prime directive after energize, it gets easier because everybody's laughing, and then you read that sentence, okay, the environment's already better. Let's get reminded about the prime directive. And then after that, a check-in. What is a check-in? It's a quick, let me feel how people are feeling right now in the context of this retrospective. And then check-in is like people kind of open their heart or how safe they're feeling before you move on into digging further information. If the check-in results show you, yes, move forward because people are safe to talk about it, then you go and dig into the problem. And then you do your filtering and then a checkout. But before you dig into the problem, have you realized like how many steps you went through? And as a facilitator, if you have signals very clear, no, I'm against that context, the energizer explodes, people are not laughing at all, the check-in shows people are not safe, don't go in that direction. If people are giving you red flags like, I cannot talk about problems, and you go talk about problems, guess what's going to happen? They're going to explode. Don't do it. If there's the red flag, what you do is like, it's a pivot inside the retrospective. Oops, safety is low. We should talk about what should you do to increase safety, not talk about what's the problem with continuous integration or whatever. That's the importance about planning the retrospect and facilitate it. Facilitate is not only following a plan. It's like go through the activities, making decisions. Yes, do I move in this direction or that? You need a plan, but then you need to facilitate.
Right. So how do you actually do this check-in? Is there a specific question that you ask? Are you feeling safe, or is there kind of survey? What's the process like?
On the site FunRetrospectives.com, I organize the activities as per those steps. There are activities for energizers. There are activities for the prime directive, because you have 2 kinds of prime directives. One about retrospective, one about future perspective, which is different, and one about team building. So the prime directive. Then there are check-in activities. Then there are main course activities for retrospective, future perspective, and team building. Different activities for each one of those. And then checkout activities. Oh, and filtering activities. So checking activities. The most famous one was safety check, but people only did the safety check and that's it. The thing about checking, like it needs to be fast to verify how people are feeling as they enter before they do the main course. Another example you can do is like 1 word. Share with us in 1 word how you're feeling right now in the context of this retrospective. Another one is draw your feelings. Please draw how you're feeling right now in the context of this retrospective. Or happiness radar. Please share with us on a scale of being really sad, super happy. how you're feeling in average during this period. How you're feeling in average during this period for things related to the business, for things related to technology, for things related to the process. It's only a happy, sad, or medium phase for each of those categories. And then you carry this forward to the next one. Okay, so now tell me why you're feeling this way. Maybe draw something. Now you need to ask why you're feeling this way, gather data. But you as a facilitator, based on what you get from the check-in, okay, yes, I can move forward safely to this next activity, or no. Tell me how safe you are about sharing and talk about anything. If the group's not safe, why are you going to ask now, like, hey, now let's talk about anything? No, the group told you they're not safe.
It seems that the facilitator's role is very important in this kind of activity. So what would be some good attributes or some good things that facilitators should possess? I know that probably it's not like everyone can do this facilitation really well. So what are some of the key things, do you think?
Well, first thing is the distinction about the facilitator hat and the participant hat. If you're a facilitator retrospect for your own team, would it even be nice if you bring a hat? I'm talking as a facilitator, remove the hat and talk as a participant. If you have the luxury to have an external facilitator, even better, because then there's no hat and everybody participates, right? That's the first advice, because I know that we need to facilitate a lot of retrospects for our teams. So bring a hat and say, hey, I'm here as a facilitator. If you're talking as a facilitator, facilitate the conversation. Don't bring your opinion to it. If you want to bring your opinion, remove the hat, raise your hand as anyone else, and then talk, when the moment's appropriate. That's the first advice. Second, if you're going to facilitate, there is some work that happens before the retrospective. It's like talking to different people, trying to understand the moment of that team, and then think about the agenda to that moment. And be careful, because sometimes you talk to people and they want too many things for one retrospective. You want to be a retrospective, not let's lock ourselves for one day here in the room. It's like having a 5-hour session with a psychologist. No, psychologists, they do a lot of 1-hour sessions. That's the purpose. Same with retrospectives. Don't bring too much in one session. It's too much for us to handle. So when you talk to different people, you need to think about the agenda, the context, the activities you're going to bring. So prepare the agenda. FunRetrospectives can help you with that, because the combination of activities will make you think about the agenda, the check-in, the main course, the checkout, the context, the prime directive you're selecting is a retro or a futurospective. Once you prepare the agenda, then it's about facilitating. Pay attention to the results and how do you create a good environment. Then pay attention if it is really a good environment. And if it is, move forward with your plan. If something goes off track, bring the focus to the people, not your agenda. That's the thing, look at the people, see how they're feeling. Don't move forward in your plan or dig into a problem or something if someone's not feeling good about it.
Thanks for sharing all this. Unfortunately, we are going to the end of this conversation due to time. But I have one last question that normally I ask for every guest. It's about 3 technical leadership wisdom. So Paulo, do you have some kind of a message or wisdom that you want to share or pass along to the audience here?
Definitely. 3 wisdoms for a leader. Empathy. Put yourself on everybody's shoes. I know it's a hard thing because we cannot give in the context, but try to understand where people come from with an open heart. Be very empathetic to understand people. The second will be openness. The moment you want to be empathy, you have to be very open to everything. Be very open-minded for the difference that we have. You cannot find 2 people alike, so you need to be very open in order to have that empathy level of connection with people. And then the third, I would say, servant. The world has changed, and if you want to be a leader, you want to figure out how to be a servant leader. Empathy, openness, and servant. Because the other stuff, leadership, you have a lot of books and things that you probably have covered. But empathy, openness, and servant, for me, those are the 3 skills that you need to really work on to be a leader for today, because we are ready in the future. The world has changed drastically.
Thanks for the beautiful wisdom message. I think I agree with that. Empathy, openness, and servant leadership will be very rare critical skills for leaders in the future. So thanks again, Paulo, for your time. If people want to connect with you or find out more about you, where can they find you?
My website, I blog very often, caroli.org, caroli.org. If you want retrospective stuff, FunRetrospectives.com. You'll find me in my contact. I'm very active on the blogs, the books, Twitter, LinkedIn. But go to the website, you'll find me.
Thanks, Paulo. I
Cool.
hope that people listen to this episode and they will try some of these things like Lean Inception and FunRetrospectives. Thanks again for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode and for staying right till the end. If you highly enjoyed, please share it with your friends and colleagues who you think would also benefit from listening to this episode. And if you're new to the podcast, make sure to subscribe and leave me your valuable review and feedback. It really helps me a lot in order to grow this podcast better. You can also find the full show notes of this conversation on the episode page at techleadjournal.dev website, including the full transcript, interesting quotes and links to the resources and mentions from the conversation. And lastly, make sure to subscribe to the show's mailing list on techleadjournal.dev to get notified for any future episodes. Stay tuned for the next Tech Lead Journal episode, and until then, goodbye.